Breaking the cycle to step forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris and Beverley Ann.
Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward. I'm Beverley Ann, and with me as usual is my lovely co-host.
Hi everyone, Chris here. Hope you're well.
So today's episode is number 48 and the title is What's Normal? And we decided after having a conversation to talk about this because we've got substantial trauma which we can acknowledge now, and something that we both receive is, you know, hearing about what you've been through. How are you so normal? But to us growing up, what we were going through was normal and didn't actually think that there was any difference. And it's only when you find out that it's not normal, that was a bit of a shock. But what about yourself, Chris? Because this is something you were talking about to someone very recently, isn't it?
It was, and I've printed off the actual post that I wrote because I run a peer-to-peer support group, Bev, like you do, okay? And I felt that because I'm so positive in my outlook most of the time, that people who were struggling couldn't really share how they were feeling. And I didn't want to ever do that. But where I come from and where you come from, mentally, physically, we like to always have a solution so that we don't stay stuck. So this is what I wrote in my peer support group. I just said, I feel that some of you may think or feel that you cannot share your struggles within the group just in case you may trigger somebody. But this is not the case. This is not what I want. However, I do think and strongly feel that if we're going to share any struggles, which I encourage everyone to do because it's so good to talk, and you can tell everyone in a moment about yours, you need it to end with something that is a bit of a solution for yourself, so that you take action, you shift your energy. Or if you're truly not capable of doing it at that time, asking the group for help and advice, but maybe being a bit specific about your ask. Because if you turn up anywhere, whether it be a group or a friend or a family member, and you are the one that consistently just dumps your troubles, walks away, feels better, maybe, you're leaving that person that you've been interacting with literally your baggage. And I personally don't feel that that's right. And I also feel that if you are dumping and running and still not feeling any different because you've got no plan of action for yourself, that disenables you. It doesn't enable you to change what needs to be changing. I'm hoping this is not coming across wrong, because that's not what I want it to do. I want it to be a conversation, and I would love to know people's thoughts on all of this. So in the group, I put, the group's never been about offloading and sitting in the negative thoughts and feelings that keep them stuck. It's always about acknowledging your struggles, then using the tools that they've learned on the course, or by doing their own research and or sharing what they need to do in order to move forward, in order to change their current circumstances. And if they're not able to, as I said, reaching out for guidance or help when they can't see a way forwards. Or if they just need to be heard, just say, I need to be heard. So I think when you can acknowledge what's going on for yourself, and when you can put words to it, you are helping yourself, because you're acknowledging that actually today I just need to be heard. Actually today I need a virtual hug. Actually today I need someone to say, go on, get up and get out. You know, just a little bit of a accountability. But it comes from a place of empowerment, not disempowerment. And that's so important.
Absolutely. Because sometimes we're frightened that we're going to disable other people. And let's be frank, even ourselves,
Yeah,
because, I love that about enabling other people in the best way, but not
yes,
enabling so that we're disabling them. And,
yeah,
you know, there's that balance between being positive, but also having to feel the fear,
yeah,
because part of that is feeling those horrible emotions that we don't want to. And not only recently this week, when we recorded this podcast, I have something going on in my personal life, and I'd seen somebody, and before I came home, I popped in to see Chris to have a cup of tea, and it was literally it was a chance for us to just sit, have that cup of tea. I didn't have the words for all the emotions that I was feeling, but I didn't want to disassociate from them, because it's important that I acknowledge them, but I wasn't ready to verbalize. But just being able to have a cup of tea and sit on the settee next to you and with your dog, which is fantastic.
yeah. She sets the world to rights.
Yeah. Gives that safe space to, like, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah,
I don't know how to say some of these feelings. I don't know how to deal with them at the moment, but I need this cup of tea. Sort of, I felt quite blindsided I
yeah.
think that's fair to say, but also it gave me an opportunity to check in with you and see how you were as well, and you had some things to say, and it was really great. And then we were able to give each other a hug and move forward, so both of us felt that, look after yourself, what you're going to do. So I knew that I was going to drive home, needed something to eat, needed to get to bed, and the next day physically I could feel it. So it's achieving that balance, but we don't know what's normal unless we speak to each other. And that's where, peer-to-peer support groups are valuable, but it's an understanding of what you get from them. So I always say a peer-to-peer support group does not replace one-to-one work,
No,
but what you do get to hear is you're not so alone, because how easy is it for us to isolate? Because
100%.
we don't know. We think we're not normal.
Yeah, and every single person in this world, whether they've gone through abuse or not, they've all had a challenge and a trauma response to that challenge in their lives. Whether they acknowledge it or not, whether it impacts them or not, everybody is going to have one or two traumas. The fact that you've gone through adverse childhood experiences, obviously, that colours your life in a different way, and it has a different outcome for many of us. And also, we were saying, didn't we, that what is normal when you're going through abuse, that is your normal. You don't know any different until you see or experience different. And we've talked about that in our earlier podcasts. For me, seeing different was going round a friend's home and experiencing proper love, nurture, and care, and proper being looked after. And just the fact that when I went around my friend's house, her mum uh, welcomed them home from school, offered them a drink, offered them a snack. Dinner will be on the table in an hour. Go off and play. Yeah. My home, you got in, there was no one to greet you. It was cold, it was loveless, it was like we didn't know where the meal was going to come from. And if there was ingredients for a meal, we would be preparing it. Yeah. We had chores to do. Weren't allowed to do homework. We had to do chores because that was all part of the power and control dynamic. And if we didn't do it the way that it was expected, which was never explained to us, so we didn't know the rules that we were playing to, there was an expectation, and if we didn't meet that expectation, further physical abuse. So we were set up to fail straight away.
Yeah.
So when it's like night and day, it's so different. And that's when I saw for the first time personally what it was to be normal.
Yeah. But there's also a learning in everyday things such as relationships. So I remember, for me, having children, I wanted to break the cycle anyway. For me, having children was huge.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big fear around it, which I hadn't acknowledged. And also all those messages, as we've mentioned before, if you've been abused, you're going to abuse. And that was like, no way.
Yeah.
For me, it was the opposite. But it's also because the learning, you create a family environment and you think, this is it, I've broken the cycle, this is it. But actually, you're still not creating that family from an informed place. That doesn't mean to say it's all wrong. I'm not saying that. But I'm sure some of our listeners can hear sometimes. It's like you look at what you've created, but there's something inside you that doesn't feel right, that you can feel really lonely, but you're in this lovely environment. And I think that needs to be acknowledged, because by acknowledging it, it's like, okay, what is it that I'm missing out on? What is it that's not normal here? I don't know what's going on. I don't understand it. And for me, it was when I was able to go for therapy and start trying to find my voice and learning. It was like, oh, what I've experienced isn't normal. And yes, I'm trying to change everything right here, right now, be positive all the time. But I hadn't had a chance to actually grieve
Yeah.
about what I'd not had,
100%.
and learn how to nurture myself. I could look after other people so well, but learning how to nurture yourself. But also, like what you were saying about being able to share, I didn't want to share anything to anyone,
No.
because the shame and the guilt, first and foremost.
Yeah.
If I share something, you're going to judge me, and
Yeah.
that's you're going to reject me,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to be on my own. So to protect myself, I actually was on my own in my own world, not tell anyone. And you can only do that for so long. And it's when you're able to find the right person, and we've spoken about this loads and loads of times, but we can't say it enough, so I'm going to reiterate it. When we're in a safe space, it's amazing what comes out. It doesn't come out all in one, but it feels like that at the time, but it comes out in bits.
Yeah. And I think when you pop round during the week, because we both know we are safe people for each other, the layers are just stripped back straight away, and we can just get down to the nitty gritty and go, right, okay, what's really going on, and how do you really feel, and what do you really need right now? There's no dancing or pussyfooting around. It is literally so direct, and there's no judgment, there's no expectation. You're just being real, and that, I think, is a real gift when you've got that within a friendship.
Being able to remove the mask of survival,
Yeah.
for me, that means such a lot, because we
Yeah.
know how to wear that mask. We know how to wear that so well.
So well.
It's how to be vulnerable. And, as Brené Brown says, having the courage to be vulnerable, but also not fixing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
I want a cup of tea. What do you
Yeah.
want? What type? Even silly things. And it's not silly, it's important. Is it builder's tea? Is it peppermint tea? What is it that you want? And it's just starting with those small steps that make such a difference. And this is where I personally think it gets missed sometimes when we talk about trauma informed, because people say, what do we need to do? How can I put the policies in place? Well, hold on. What does that person want?
Mm-hmm.
Don't overthink it. Don't try and give them too much. But to create something normal, sometimes I think, and I know anyone listening is going to think, where are they going now? But what we create is a scenario that's not normal. Because to me, normal is acknowledgement. So when you walk through your door of your house, having someone acknowledging you, what would you like to eat? What would you like to drink? These are normal, everyday things that are important. But unless you've learnt to do that, it's not normal.
Yeah. Going back to something that you've said that I've picked up on, I'm quickly scribbling away, because these are what our conversations are like. We start with something and then it goes off on tangents, but always comes back. Grieving. It just hit me, literally, that when I had my child, Ben, when I was 28, that was what I was dealing with, was the grief of not having normal caregivers. And even though we've spoken about this so many times, it's only just today hit me that that was what I was thinking and feeling, was the grief of not. I was very angry, which I've shared so many times, that why did nobody protect me like I was going to protect mine? But it was grieving, as well as being angry about the lack of protection. But it was grieving the whole normal parenting that
What you
we
didn't
never
have.
got. Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously to the extreme, because it wasn't even lack of, it was abuse. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and I know it's similar for you, but it just literally hit me there. That was grief. And that's why it knocked me off my feet. And that is why I had the breakthrough that I had at that time.
And that's what, when we talk about these uncomfortable feelings, grief is uncomfortable, and there's
Oh my
different
God.
stages of grief for everybody, and there is no
Yeah.
set, this is what's going
Time.
to happen.
Yeah.
And anger is part of grief. But I will also say there's different types of grief. So I'm going to say something that's going to sound quite strange to people. I know that feeling of grief of something that I've not had. So as a child, I didn't have the nurturing and love that I wanted within my family.
Yeah.
But then there was another grief of losing something that I enjoyed. I felt safe in a children's home. So I went through the grief of losing something that, losing my safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not, didn't want to go back home, and it's, so grief comes in different ways, but it's important that when there's an ending, there is grief. So
That
even
you
in
go
our
through the
everyday,
process.
absolutely. So, I'm going through a grief at the moment, which is very personal, but I'm going to say it's a beautiful grief, because this grief is not about what I've not had. It's about feeling honoured to be in this presence at the moment, and being able to access those feelings of sadness, because there is sadness in
Yeah.
this grief, but it's a very different grief. The anger and frustration is like, why now? But
Yeah.
that's okay, and that will come in different formats. And I find that if I understand something,
Yes.
I'm able to think, okay, I'm cognitively, in my head, I know there's different stages, but now I understand it, and now I understand myself, and I've been able to check in with myself. I'm able to hold myself in that space and allow those feelings to come out, which sounds so easy, but it takes a real learning to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And there's quite a few people that I've come across, and this is not a criticism, this is just us having a conversation, that they don't necessarily know what they're feeling. So there's those group of people. Then there's another group of people that can name what they're feeling, but they don't know how to turn it around. And then there's those people that can feel, can name, can deal, and can move on. So in my head, this is just a process of learning and recovering more quickly from one thing to another over time. Is that correct in saying that?
Well, yeah. So you know me, I like an analogy. So for me, at one time, I felt like I was on a helter-skelter. It was ultimate highs, really deep lows. And then I'd be going on a straight thinking this is it. And then life would happen. And I'd be like a roller coaster, you'd be shifted down to the left or the right, and there'd be a dip. And it would really knock me. And I'd really have to work hard just to be living every single day. in that way. And I remember once saying years later, I'm just so tired of this fight.
Yeah, loads
And
of people say that.
the person said to me, stop fighting. I was like,
Okay,
but if I don't fight, and they
what am I
went,
doing?
you'll be there for yourself. And do you know what? That was scary. That was like, what, you want me to enjoy this roller coaster? Whereas I know the fear of it,
Yeah,
but now you want me to just let go, just sit in this roller coaster called life and go with it. And do you know what? The ironic thing is, that is the biggest thing for me that has helped. So now, yeah, life has ups and downs. It does change at times, but I now have tools that I know how to use, but I'm not afraid of myself. And I think
okay.
that's a gift.
It is, and it, as you said, you always say it's a learning. But can I just be devil's advocate here? What about
Absolutely.
those people who are finding it, they don't know what that looks like and feels like because they haven't got that far yet. So they literally, they're okay, they're not thriving, they're okay. Then something happens that will trigger them and bring them down. And you can see sometimes when some people share that obviously it's depression, it's anxiety, it might end up in clinical depression. They might be able to drag themselves out of that for a little while, but life is not great. And then they just keep having these dips and they don't seem to be having any movement up and any linear, just living life and thriving. I think
Absolutely.
it's
And
a learning
everybody,
process.
everybody's quality of life and how they want to live it is very independent, very independent. And that's important to acknowledge. So I think the important thing, first of all, and this is not as easy as we think, sometimes we hear people go, oh, what kind of life do you want? Just say what life you want. Well, you
Yeah.
know what? I don't know sometimes.
Hmm.
So you've said this before.
Yeah.
You said about writing down what you don't want anymore.
Yeah. Turn it round.
Turn it round. I'm the other way. Sometimes it's like, okay, I know I don't want that anymore because I've been feeling it. I know that. So let's
Yeah.
have a blank canvas. What do I want? But not big things. What do
No.
I want? I want to feel that when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel anxious.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is available to help you not feel anxious? Now, when I say what's available, yes, some of it will come down to wellness and self-care, but some
Yeah.
of it is about learning what's available for me, who's available in my local area.
Yeah.
Is there, is there somewhere I can go to where there's other people I can talk? And there's lots of different people. I think of Mind in different areas, and they do informal groups, don't they? They do gardening
Yeah.
groups, etc. So you're not necessarily going there for the spotlight to be on you, but you're going there to be with other people who know how you feel.
Yeah.
I think of online, I think of like Ben Akers, who does the Talk Club, who founded that after losing his friend, whose friend died by suicide, and he has a talk club for men only. So it's not about any specific, but it's being able to create that community of support that's right for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it means going to the doctor. I've been to the doctor in the past as well. I didn't know where to go, and I was in such a place that I couldn't do it on my own at that time, so I went to the doctor. And these days the doctors are more aware of that, and they have their own referrals they can make locally, and they have community groups, and it's step by step, because you can go the other way. You can join all of these groups and do it too much, and we all do that at different times. So I'm
Yeah.
laughing there because I know that's, oh, I can do this on a good day. I'll do that, and I'll do that, and I'll do that, and then suddenly you become overwhelmed. It's like, well, hold on, slow down. So I do hear how people are there. I have been there in the past, but knowledge there is very much power to understand. And where we isolate ourselves because we're fighting to being triggered, often by isolating ourselves, we actually trigger ourselves much more.
Yeah, yeah. But again, that is some of that is the learning, isn't it? That you have to go through that, and then maybe it's happened to me. You just wake up and you just go, something's got to change. Can't carry on doing this. Can't carry on feeling this.
And
And we
in
were
any
talking.
recovery,
Yeah, yeah,
it's getting to that level,
yeah,
and that's really hard as well for people around you,
yeah,
because if they see that you're not coping, or if they see, or they want to make things better for you,
yeah,
they can't, because you've
yeah,
got to be it's all well and good, and we've all done it. When we start to get well, we want to do the same for, read this book, this will change your life. And if you're not ready to receive it,
yeah.
it won't.
No, no. But I want to go back to this checking in with self, which has always been your phrase that you use, and we talk about it quite often. But it's like it's actually identifying and acknowledging that you yourself have needs, and they have probably not been met at some point, especially if you're an individual that's gone through adverse childhood experiences from an abuse and violence perspective. You've had your needs not met mostly, and you may have had any needs that you did have beaten out of you, mentally or physically beaten out of you. So you're then sitting with this mask on. You're sitting there with very low self-esteem, low self-worth, probably even hating yourself because that's the way you've been made to feel. That's a big place, or a low place, that you have to shift yourself from when you don't know how to do it, and at the end of the day you've been told you're not gonna amount to anything, you're not gonna you're just a person that is not worthy. Yeah,
And
that
yeah,
that is a big place to step up from, and a very scary place.
it is and it isn't. And I'm going to say this now. So and I'm going to go back to one of my lowest places. I'm not going to go into the details of it because there's personal people involved, but it was one of my very lowest places. And the pain I was feeling, I wanted it to stop.
Right.
It was a big dark hole, and I was at the bottom of it. However, even though I was at the bottom, in my mind, there was just this little green shoot. So if you think of a plant, literally was a little green shoot. And there was someone literally saying, you are worth it. You are worth it. Okay. That's
Who was
all.
saying that to you, or
It
was
was in
that
my
just a
head.
little voice you was
It's just
hearing?
a little
Okay.
voice,
Yeah.
little voice. You are worth it. And in that moment, that was before I was doing any of the work that I do now, but in that moment, it was like, okay, one step at a time, hence the name of my practice. So one step at a time. So here you are right now. What do you need right now? And at that time, I hadn't eaten for like 24 hours. So it was like, okay, why don't you wipe your face? So I went to the bathroom, I wiped my face. Okay. So it's talking to yourself as if you're the person. You're so used to looking after everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's doing that to yourself, and even make yourself the third person. Talk, what is it you want to eat? I don't know, I
So
can
that
barely eat.
voice, Bev, in your head was almost being like the caring, nurturing parent or person to
Yeah,
your physical current self.
yeah. Which, when you do it so small like that, when you're, in that place, you're not talking about the big leaps, because it was like, I just want soup and
Yeah.
bread, have soup. And I probably only had half a bowl, if that, but I had it. And then it was like, I'm so tired, I want to go back to bed. Fine. But can you see, by
Yeah.
nurturing, but going back to bed, and I went back to bed. Then the next day you wake up, okay, step by step. What do you want? My first thing I wanted was a cup of tea. And I'm always looking at the cups that I use. And if there's a message, I read the message. So it's doing it step by step. If it's support, I can't do this today on my own. Okay, who can support you? And that's where I personally And I do that professionally with people, break it down.
And I think, obviously, I've talked about one end of the extreme where people don't even know that they've got choice and that they need to check in with themselves and that they need to acknowledge their own needs and provide that for themselves. But then you've got the other end of the spectrum. We've both been there as well, where you're just working, whether it's working at a hobby or working, whatever it is, but you're keeping busy all of the time is what I'm trying to get to. That also is exhausting, and it's keeping up the mask, and it's keeping up you're so busy that you don't have to sit and think, and that is equally as damaging, if I can use that word, if you don't try and find some balance and bring that into your life.
And it's another form of coping. It's another form of dissociation. You're dissociating from those, those awful feelings that you don't want to feel. But actually, when we release them and we feel them, we actually allow them to come out. When we're able to do that, either with support or on our own, that's when we can actually take a look and think, okay, what do I need now? My heart's breaking. I feel really awful. I'm shattered. I can't stop crying. Okay, I hear you. So what do you want now? I need someone to talk to. Okay, especially if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. The Samaritans are fantastic. You can phone them, you can message them, you can email them. It's having those tools around and that support around you that makes such a difference, even when you're on an absolute high. Because what people underestimate is, we understand what a low is, we know that. But so when I check in with myself, if I was at an event that was absolutely amazing, oh, I'm on a 10 or 11 out of 10. This is amazing. I know that 2-3 days later, there's going to be a come down. There's going to be a natural come down. And that can be scary when you've been really low. But then you have to be like, hold on, I'm going to check in myself. Where am I? Oh, I'm actually at level 7 today because I'm tired. Had an amazing time at that event, but I'm tired. And for me, that's reassurance. Like, oh, yeah, I come down to level 7, but actually level 7's a really good level to be.
Yeah.
And for me, using that level of between 1 and 10 really makes a difference. And notice I'm using the word level, not score. And there's a reason for that. Because if we start using the word score, we automatically, if we're at a 1, we start to feel like we're failing.
Yeah.
It has a negative connotation to it. Whereas when it's on a level, it's like, oh, okay, that's where you are. What do you need to get to level 2?
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel that the years that I spent doing, they were exhausting, and I didn't know that until I just thought one day, why am I doing all of this when I don't need to be doing it? And the reason why I asked myself that is because I was sick and tired of not enjoying life, taking that time out and just enjoying and checking in with myself and actually giving my permission to be allowed to enjoy certain things. I felt like I wasn't allowed to do that because of past experiences. We weren't allowed to enjoy ourselves. When we were happy and laughing, it was taken away from us. So that was ingrained, and that only came out through therapy. So it was almost like I had to set myself a task for each month to book something, put it in the diary that was going to be enjoyable, and actually work beforehand, during and after, to actually go, no, you're allowed to have these moments. You're allowed to spend this money on yourself. You're allowed to do this. You're allowed to experience these downtimes, whatever it looked like. So, but I had to teach myself that. And I still find it difficult now. However, the fact that since 2010, since we've written the book and since we've started all of our work together. And as I explained to Channel 4 yesterday, I just sort of like had this epiphany moment. I said to them, I'm speaking my truth. I'm living in my truth. I've got nothing to be shamed about. I've got nothing to be guilty of. And just being authentically me means I can find peace. And that's it. And once I said that, I was sitting on the bench yesterday in the cold anyway, but once I said it, I got a cold chill go over me, but I also felt decompression happening through my body. And again, like you, today I've woken up and I'm knackered, but there is this like inner, almost like you can let some of this stuff go, you know. And I said, I'm choosing to do this work. I'm choosing to talk about my lived experiences. No one's making me. I could, like you, we could walk away from this, get a normal job and have a normal life. But that is not who we are and what we're about. We're choosing to do this, but acknowledging that every time that we speak, even this, every time we speak, there is a little bit of a trauma response, because we are giving over we're being vulnerable, we're giving over ourselves, and that's open to judgment and it's open to comments, but I don't give a monkeys. I really don't. And I know you're the same, because we want everybody to find their own peace. We want to let them, help them thrive in their own lives. And we're just sharing our experiences just in case it may resonate with them. And
Absolutely.
they can then go on similar journeys, or they can start looking at what they need. And it's not selfish to check in. It's not selfish to acknowledge that you've got needs, and for you to meet those needs, whatever they are.
Absolutely. And being in the moment, and you know, we hear a lot about mindfulness, etc. And it's like, but what is being in the moment? And for me, you know, it's like when we finish, I'll be going out for a walk with the dogs, and I know you do the same as well. But I really take time to smell what, you know.
I hope you don't smell.
No, but you know, smell, like if
I
you're
know
walking
what
by
you
the
mean.
sea, smell
Yeah.
the sea, or if you're walking in a field, smell the green, smell the
Yeah.
rain, even if it's raining.
Yeah.
What can I see? I'm literally taking snapshots, because this is where I am at this moment. And if so much is coming in my head, it's like, okay, what's in my head? Do you see what I mean? What do I need to let go of? And it's the
Yeah.
letting go that people go, oh, just let go of it. No, that's the bit that's a learning as well, because when you do let go, wow. And then
Yeah.
it takes the adjusting to the new living. So when we overthink it, we overthink because we're catastrophizing. And that's not a word that I like. I like to say of
No.
it is, we're not catastrophizing what we are, but what we're doing, we're looking at every possible scenario. Because if we
Yeah.
think it, I remember saying this years ago, well, if I prepare myself for everything that can go wrong, then
Yeah.
I know what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think back
Yeah.
now and I think how exhausted I was exhausted. Whereas
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, different things come up. Um, my diary, I use my diary to put in time out. If I look at my diary and there's too much going in, okay, when's the time out? And I
Yeah.
block that day out.
Yeah.
And if I want to go out all day, I go out. If I want to stay in bed, I stay in bed. That's why I'm enjoying the the training for the Brighton Marathon. Now we are coming up to the end of our episode. So, what would you like to say, Chris, to anyone listening about what's normal as we end?
Exactly. What is normal? I think every human being, we deserve love, care, nurture. We deserve to check in and acknowledge how we're feeling, how we're thinking. and we deserve to have a thriving life. And if we can't get it from people around us like we expect, for whatever reason, that we have to learn to give it to ourselves as a first base. We need to do that anyway, but some people are just not in that place for whatever reason. So if they're in a toxic relationship, whether it be a friendship or a intimate relationship, what is it they need and how can they get out of that toxic relationship, and then how can they rebuild?
But
And then
that's not just relationship in marital sense, that's also
no,
familial,
yeah, family, yeah. But this is about what is it you need and how you're going to go about it, what help and support do you need, and using everything that we've ever shared in all of our podcasts, really. I'm sure, you know, we're not telling people how to live their lives or how to recover. We're just sharing what we know, what we learn, and hopefully something will resonate and something will help.
Thank you. Absolutely. And you said it so succinctly. What I'm going to say is, if listening to this, you've got questions, or you even want to be signposted, because, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And sometimes there's support and we're not sure where to start. So please email us. It's BreakingTheCycleToStepForward@gmail.com. If you're watching this on a video, you'll be able to contact us through YouTube channel. If you're listening to this on a platform, you'll be able to contact us through the platform. There's always a link underneath. So keep well, enjoy living your life. Every day is a blessing. And here's to another episode.
Well done. We are slowly creeping forwards to episode number 50, so we need to think of something special. All right.
That's in addition to the guests that we have on as well.
100%, yeah, but our 50th.
Yes.
Bev, our 50th.
Yeah. All right then.
All right,
Bye.
bye. Bye.